Hello, I'm Jim Cornwall, and this is the WalkingPost.com podcast. WalkingPost.com is the news website dedicated to walking, with all the latest on books, health, festivals, gear, trails, and more. This podcast, number 13, hopefully not unlucky, is airing on Friday, May the 23rd, which just happens to be Don't Friday, although I'm not sure if that means being out in the sun too long or fried food. Considering I live in Scotland, where fried food seems to be the staple diet. I mean, where else can you get deep fried pizza and deep fried Mars bars? It's also World Crohn's and Colitis Day, and it's World Turtle Day. And I did actually know 3 of the people born on this day: Drew Carey, baseball manager Buck Showalter, and tennis player John Newcombe. And today is also the day this podcast comes out, but you knew that. It was another wonderfully warm week here, but I wasn't able to do much, as my son picked a warm day to have a bad cold. And the next 2 weekends it looks like it's back to normal for Scotland, as the forecast is dreich, which is a Scots term for wet and miserable and generally rubbish. Not much else to report from this week other than a flat tyre on the car, new glasses that I had to take back, and getting annoyed with myself for watching the Eurovision Song Contest. Anyway, the painful memories from that should subside quickly enough. It's about a week after the show, and I can't remember any of the artists or the songs. Maybe my expectations are just too high. The big test, though, is can I remember who was on the podcast last week? And for once, yes, I can. We talked about the Otley Walking Festival, and I want to go, of course. And our other guest was the author Ursula Martin, talking about her first book, One Woman Walks Wales, and her follow-up, which came out fairly recently, and that one is called One Woman Walks Europe. And I really enjoyed both of those interviews. Reading that new book is on my to-do list as well, although my pile of unread walking books keeps growing. Not as badly as the CDs to listen to pile, it has to be said. So, what are the subjects for this week's podcast? Well, a few weeks ago we had an article about a new trail being created in Nova Scotia in Canada, and it's called the Jajiktek Seawall Hiking Trail. So we have a conversation about that with Emery Ferraro, Trails Coordinator for Inverness County in Nova Scotia. And we're also talking about going back to school. Well, kind of, because we have a conversation with Sam Sykes, who runs the Mammut Mountain School UK in Cumbria. Of course, before that, a quick look at some of this week's articles on WalkingPost.com. If you do have news, press releases, guest ideas or comments, please do get in touch via walkingpost.com, or you can just email me, jim@walkingpost.com. So it's time for a brief look at some of the headlines of the news articles we had on walkingpost.com this past week. Race walking is the next big cardio trend, so fast walking for optimal fitness. If you've ever tried speed walking, it is tiring. Bronte Country is going to become the country's newest national nature reserve, and the winners of the Outdoor Innovation Awards programme have been announced. The Irish government has committed more investment to Ireland's walking trails, which is definitely good news. We had an article on Colombia breaking its tourism and bird count records, and in Wales, a carefully over 60s walking group has won a National Outdoor Discovery Award. Huawei has unveiled a new series of wearables, and the latest section of the King Charles III England coastal path from Mablethorpe to the Humber Bridge has opened. I used to cycle out to the bridge when it was being constructed and take photos, and the day that the Queen opened it was the day of my driving test. What a mess that was. Definitely some interesting industrial landscapes heading by Grimsby and Immingham, and nice views of Hull across the Humber and across to Spurn Point. I know growing up it was alleged that Julius Caesar had walked across the Humber, but that is definitely a myth. He took the hovercraft. Anyway, you can read all of those stories and more at walkingpost.com. Okay, let's move on to this week's conversations. A new 50-kilometre coastal trail is being constructed in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, in Canada. The County of Inverness has been given funding to design and build the Jajiktek Seawall Hiking Trail. It's a coastal trail in the northern Highlands of Cape Breton. To tell us more about it and about hiking in the region is Emery Ferrero, Trails Coordinator for Inverness County. The new trail was announced not too long ago. Could you give us some details about it?
Well, actually, it's a project that's been in the making for a very long time. It's been a vision that the communities in that northern part of Cape Breton have had for, I think, well over 20 years at this point. There's been a small group of volunteers who have organized a nonprofit society to try to start thinking about how they could move this forward. So the vision for the trail has actually been around for quite some time, but it's only been in the last couple of years that the momentum has built enough that there's been a significant amount of investment at the provincial and federal level to make it happen.
What's the reasoning behind it? Does it fill in a gap, or is it just for the sake of having a trail because it's a good location?
Well, I mean, it's a route that people have been traversing for a really, really long time. I mean, obviously, it's a place that's near and dear to the Indigenous folks as well. It's, got a lot of significance to them, and for the communities in the area, it's definitely a backyard that they're familiar with. But the route from Pleasant Bay to Meat Cove has been a popular sort of off-trail wilderness expedition for a long time out there. So we've even got some tour guides up here that'll do annual trips across the plateau there at the seawall. And so it's an idea that's been becoming more and more popular over the years, especially as we've seen the popularity of hiking and backpacking really grow over the last decade or so. And so I think that has just kind of created a perfect amount of momentum with the community-driven work and also sort of the attention that all of the amazing recreation Cape Breton has to offer is also gathering. So it's being seen as a pretty significant way to invest in having that be a part of what it is that Cape Breton and Inverness County in particular has to offer.
It's a linear coastal trail?
Yeah, so it's going to be a point-to-point route. It's going to be about 50 kilometers, give or take, and it's going to be hut to hut. So folks will be able to take a shuttle to Pleasant Bay and start their hike there. And it'll be 3 nights where they get to stay in a hut that'll be in the backcountry there, and then come out in Meat Cove on day 4. And it traverses just some of the most amazing, wild coastal scenic landscapes in Cape Breton. I had the privilege of getting to walk the route this last fall, just sort of checking it out and seeing, just like really getting the details of like, what's it going to take to put a trail here. And it was phenomenal, just truly wild country, just really gorgeous.
See any wildlife on the way?
Yes, we saw a bear, which was really cool. It was a very safe distance away from us, but we were kind of in this upper plateau area where you could see for quite a while, and we were taking a bearing on our GPS to figure out which way we wanted to go, and we kind of looked out towards the horizon, towards the ocean, and seeing, okay, we need to go that way. And then I was like, wait, what's that? And about, maybe 500 meters out and away, there was a very healthy, happy looking black bear just taking its time, eating some blueberries. And we said, all right, we'll go somewhere else. But it was really, really cool. And then we didn't see any moose, but the evidence that they are out there was very abundant.
Is there any way of what you don't want is millions of people descending on a new trail and all of a sudden the wildlife moves out? And of course it's Cape Breton, so it's not going to be millions of people. But is there any thought of mitigating that nature human balance?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have some sort of a set of values that are driving decision making, whether it's how we engage with communities, how we're designing the trail, and that environmental sustainability and low impact is top of the list. So we're really looking at making sure that we use construction methods that are low impact. And then also because it's a hut to hut system, we will be able to have a cap on how many people are hiking the trail at any one time because it will be hut stays only for people who are hiking. And so we'll be able to know at any given time how many folks are out on the trail and we'll be able to manage the traffic that way.
No, that's excellent. Do you think more people are choosing outdoor vacations and locations within Nova Scotia rather than Lunenburg, Halifax, Peggy's Cove?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I'm still pretty new to the area myself. So I think just from what I've heard, there's definitely an uptick in the interest of folks either from Nova Scotia wanting to vacation and find adventures in their own backyard, and also folks from the rest of the maritime provinces also wanting to know, about all the amazing adventures that are here in the backyard. And also just kind of given recent geopolitical issues, I think we're going to see a ton of Canadians wanting to stay local and vacation in Canada and find adventures here first and foremost.
In the UK, Nova Scotia aggressively advertises to try and get tourists. So it's probably beyond just Nova Scotia that they're looking to get people from.
For sure. There's definitely, once the trail, is ready to be ready for that sort of prime time scene, there's definitely going to be a lot of effort to, share it beyond just our backyard so that folks from all over the world could kind of celebrate it with us. And Nova Scotia has, deep old ties to Scotland in particular. And I think that bridge is going to form pretty naturally for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well with having just a few days, it's not like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest that's going to take you months. You could go for a 1 or 2 week vacation and still find time to do other things if you were going to do this particular trail.
Exactly. And that's kind of the beauty of it is that not only can it be a standalone adventure, but it also complements the other options for experiences in the area. So, you get to the end of the trail and there's going to be a food truck there with the best lobster rolls, around. And you're going to be able to enjoy the local seafood. Another thing we're very excited about is we've been very intentional about partnering with the Mi'kmaq communities throughout the entire process of designing and building this trail. And there's going to be a really cool opportunity to build some Indigenous-based tourism and Indigenous-rooted experiences for folks that want to come out. We're kind of looking at that New Zealand model where you can go to New Zealand and have a lot of those Maori-rooted experiences. And so we're kind of looking to do something similar out here where you can experience the trail and support the Mi'kmaq communities and just really hear their story as well while you're experiencing the trail.
And of course, this new trail isn't a standalone. It's part of that wider Cabot Trail. Are there lots of hikes in and around the Cabot Trail?
Yeah, so the Cabot Trail basically more or less circumnavigates the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. So for a big section of that, you'll see signs all over the place for spots you can pull over for viewpoints and hikes that you can take. Some are short. I think the most famous one's going to be the Skyline Trail. Everybody's got those iconic pictures from the Skyline Trail, but other really special experiences all over the national park that you can access from the Cabot Trail for sure.
And what about accommodation in the Highlands Park?
Some of the more well-known accommodations, if you're looking for something a little bit less in the dirt, there's lots of accommodations in sort of the villages and towns that are all along the Cabot Trail.
Are there any specific standout trails in the Cape Breton National Park? I know you mentioned the one that everybody, or at least everybody in Nova Scotia would know about, but are there lots of good ones?
Definitely. It's really impressive the amount of trails that they have there. I'm really familiar because my position is rooted in Inverness County. I'm really familiar with the ones that are kind of on the west side. So you've got the Acadian Trail, you've got the Salmon Pools Trail. They're all fantastic adventures for a variety of folks.
And I guess one of the things, especially if you're from Europe, is just the sheer size of something like the Cape Breton Highlands National Park. It's big and you can very easily get away from civilization.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that's really neat about Cape Breton. It is a very rural place. It's out here. And so you do get that experience of having everything be, a big, wide expanse and everything else being kind of smaller scale and enjoying the wonderful things that all the little villages have to offer in the area too.
You mentioned you met a bear. Do you have to kind of educate people on safety and etiquette and trails and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case anywhere you have trails and recreation, right? There's the component of you want folks to be safe while they're out there enjoying their adventures, just understanding your basics of kind of your classic outdoor 10 essentials, and also sharing with folks about how to leave no trace when they're out there. And then also there's a lot of like location specific safety considerations. We were talking earlier about the moose and the bears. So just knowing how to safely hike in their habitat. I think you're going to find that anywhere that there's hiking, that we'll do our best to kind of educate folks so that they can stay safe out there and also know how to respect the landscape. I think my preferred method of kind of educating folks is to, especially when they're visiting from away, is to just sort of invite them to be a part of the local culture of taking care of a place that we love. You know, they get to enjoy it and be here temporarily to enjoy it as they're visiting. And we just want them to kind of join us in our culture of locals as we take care of the land that we love to.
I don't know if you keep records, but are more people visiting that area, Cape Breton, and specifically around the Cabot Trail and Inverness County?
I mean, I started my role with the municipality back in June, and I think that the creation of my position in and of itself is sort of a testament to the need. I always like to say my job is to connect people to trails and trails to people. And so my role is really crafted as a way to not just get community members out and enjoying the trails in their backyard, because I mean, it's so much more than just the national park. We've got trails all over Inverness County that are just amazing, and they all serve different communities. And so it's not just getting folks out on trails, but also connecting trails that maybe need some love or some maintenance or ideas for new trail development to community groups that can really champion that, and empowering them with volunteer recruitment resources, grant funding, different things like that, so that they can really uplift and bolster the amazing offerings that we have here.
Is that an easy thing to do? You mentioned like the maintenance of trails and things. Is that obviously when you've got a national park, then they take care of it, but some of the local trails, is it easy to find people to help?
You know, it's a complicated answer. Trail maintenance itself, there is a lot of, science behind what creates a good, solid, sustainable trail that can handle the use that it's being created for. And that's like something that I have a lot of experience with, is like being on trail crews and things like that. And some people look at me a little crazy if they think that my idea of a fun afternoon is being out in the woods with a grubber working on trails, but I think it's a blast. And so what we're really seeing around here is just that so much of the trails that have been crafted and created and brought to life by the community, those volunteer groups are really kind of like a lot of the rest of the population in Nova Scotia has been aging up until fairly recently. And so we're seeing a fair amount of just sort of the same volunteers volunteering on all the trails in their backyards, and they're getting kind of burnt out and they're kind of aging out of the ability to really put a lot of that sweat equity into the trails. And so one of the things that's really top of mind for me is working on how do we get younger people more involved in trails, whether it's young professionals, whether it's families, whether it's, youth. Something that I'm really excited about and I'm passionate about is creating job opportunities for youth. So something that we'll be offering this summer is a summer trail crew, where I'm going to be hiring a small cohort of high school students as well as a college student who will be coordinating with me, to have a group of youth that will be available to add capacity to projects that these volunteer groups maybe have been putting off because they don't have the capacity to tackle it. So whether it's like installing a bridge or rerouting around a landslide or things like that, some of these bigger projects that we can lend some youthful energy and time to. And then not only do we then offer that to be able to help take care of the trails locally, but those youth will walk away from that summer position with a deep skill set in community engagement, skills in natural resources that they can apply to any future career, as well as really practical things like first aid certification. So I'm really excited about how that community piece can be really symbiotic. And it's not just, I think sometimes volunteering gets sort of looked at from like a more negative angle, where it's just people like giving over and over again. But I think, for me, as someone who's really passionate about supporting volunteer groups, I want to make sure that volunteers are also getting something out of that experience, whether it's pride in a job well done, a sense of ownership over and, accomplishment over participating and taking care of a trail in their backyard that they walk their dog on every day, or even just building career skill sets. I mean, I'm in this career because I started as a volunteer and because I built that skill set of technical trail expertise as well as community organizing. I was able to turn it into a career. So I'd love to be able to turn around and offer that as something that other folks can participate into.
And I guess you also hope that those people that do work on it will spread the word about the trails and attract other people to come up there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it part of that, part of what you do, promotion of the trails?
A little bit, yeah. My position focuses really on getting community members out on trails. So I will promote locally and within communities to host like hikes that are, kid friendly or hikes that are great for like first timers. I hear a lot from folks that they want to hike more, but they don't have anybody to go with. And the idea of hiking by themselves can be, fair enough, very intimidating. And so I've had a lot of positive responses to offering community hikes where folks can come out with a group. As far as like larger, more like strategic marketing of Cape Breton as a hiking destination, we have some pretty effective and awesome tourism agencies here in the island that kind of take the lead on that. So my focus is to get our community members out on their own trails in their own backyard.
Are there any things like walking festivals out there?
We do have something coming up this spring where they celebrate all the different waterfall trails that we have on the island. It's island wide. It's not just in Inverness County, and it's put on by the tourism folks where they really kind of curate these cool experiences for folks where they can hike trails, see the waterfalls, and also there's some other associated activities where I think if they visit like a certain number of waterfalls, they get a prize and things like that. So we do have that kind of stuff going on out here.
I know here in the UK there are many people that want to visit Canada, but they often head to the Rockies, Vancouver or Toronto, but Nova Scotia definitely gets its fair share of tourists. It's got lighthouses, whale watching, historic cities and some amazing scenery. And it's got Cape Breton, the island at the top of Nova Scotia, which includes the famous Cabot Trail, which is definitely worth putting on your bucket list. I think my bucket list is the size of a shipping container. I also like the idea of that hut to hut walking. Maybe it should be Pizza Hut to Pizza Hut. Next, we're going to chat about the Mammut Mountain School UK, which is in Kendal in Cumbria, where you can learn about climbing, scrambling, navigating and a whole lot more. We chatted with Sam Sykes, who runs the school. Maybe you could give me a bit of background on the mountain school.
Sure. The Mammut Mountain School, there's quite a bit of history to it, actually. So I worked with Mammut, the brand in the UK, for quite some time. I've been an instructor all my life, since I was a child, teenager, all the way up. And I've done a lot of different jobs in the outdoor industry, from working at Outward Bound and various centres, freelancing, running, climbing walls, all those sorts of things. And it brought me into the world of Mammut, which had been a favourite brand of mine for my whole life anyway. And they used me to help them with the retailer training. So that's where we take shop staff out to train them on the product and what the product can do. Also, the retailers get a lovely day out in the mountains or a few days. So they used me exclusively to do that for quite some time. And I said, look, I run my own companies now, expedition companies and mountain schools. Why don't we set up the Mammut Mountain School? Because in the Alps in Switzerland, they had the Mammut Alpine School for quite some time with great success. So we started that, and we've been running alongside Mammut now for quite some time as a sponsored company. But now, as of this year, the Mammut Mountain School is a formal entity. And the idea behind that is we'll obviously continue doing our work with the outdoor industry and retailers and buyers and so on and so forth. And we'll take them doing all sorts of things that show them what the equipment can do and give them some more information on it through the experience of actually being in the mountains. But really, the mountain school is aimed at members of the public who want to come out and learn more about skills relating to the mountains. So that can be anything from basic navigation skills right through to alpine preparation for the greater ranges, big wall technical things while camping, anything really that you do in the mountains we cover. We're also training instructors with MLs and things like that, passing them out. And this year with Mammut UK, obviously brands evolve over time in how they interact with their customer base. And we're going to be a big strategic part of that moving forward, because Mammut ultimately, they sell some fantastic stuff. You know, I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it, but actually having people come out to learn the skills in the mountains and at the same time they can try the kit as well is one of the big aims for us. And we've been doing that very successfully for a number of years, but now it's a more focused approach on that with my team. We're based in the Lake District. My businesses have been based in the Lake District for over 15 years now, but I'm a Lancashire lad, so I live down in Lytham. I've been involved in the mountains since the moment I could walk. My father brought me into it. He ran the Duke of Edinburgh's Award voluntarily for over 50 years. He's just retired a year ago, but he's still involved. He's in his mid-80s. And I grew up with that. So as well as the 2 mountain schools I run, one of them being the Mammut Mountain School, I also run Sam Sykes Expeditions, which is the world's largest commercial provider of Duke of Edinburgh's Award expeditions. So we're busy year round doing everything with young people all the way through to adults and families and whatever it may be. With the Mammut Mountain School, it's a great thing for my more experienced instructors to be involved in, because it's sort of, you know, those higher level skills that we're looking at. We've got out a all-female mountain leader training course going on. They're enjoying the great weather. They were doing steep ground skills yesterday and they're out on their expedition tonight. As we speak, I've got 280 young people out on expeditions around the UK too.
You mentioned getting the people that sell or that are associated with the Mammut gear out into the field to kind of experience it. Is that unique, or do a lot of companies that create this kind of gear do the same thing?
To my understanding, not to the level that we do. So last year, as an example, I had pretty much every retailer that works with Mammut out on the Via Ferrata at Honister. And the reason that we do that, the Via Ferrata, we were doing other stuff as well for other retailers too, as well as that. But it allows them to not only wear the footwear and the clothing, but also the packs, the helmets, the harnesses, the Via Ferrata gear, so on and so forth, and actually get to use it in context with our expert instructors who can sort of put that into the perspective of, you know, what they're going to be saying to customers and how it gets used over in the Alps, things like that.
All right. What kind of courses are you going to be offering, or do you offer?
Everything that we do at the Mammut Mountain School, we base it around the customer. I'm a firm believer in low ratios. So we're not a company that likes to take out a big team of 12 or 15 people doing navigation training. And for the vast majority of our courses, it's a 1-to-6 ratio or lower. And that allows us to adapt every single course we do around the customers that we're actually working with. And the majority of what we actually do is what we call private guiding courses. So somebody will ring up and they'll say, oh, Sam, I've done this, that and the other. I've climbed Snowdon. I've done a bit of basic scrambling, but I really want to climb the Matterhorn. So I'll work with them to put together a package of private guiding to get them through the skill sets required to get them ready for that. And then probably introduce them to one of our associate guides that works over in Europe, or the Mammut Mountain School Europe. So we do that. And then obviously we have a number of courses. So we do a crevasse rescue course, which is incredibly popular. We do that at our headquarters in Kendal. We've got basically a great big hole in the floor in our unit that is our fake crevasse, but it's indoors, inside, and it's an evening session. People can come and practice the theory behind crevasse rescue and understand that in an environment where they can stand there with a cup of tea and look at it and then play with the ropes without having to go and get out to the Alps and actually go into a crevasse. Obviously, we very much recommend that you do that eventually, but to get your head round the systems, especially for those with not much climbing experience, ropes and knots and prussics and bits and bobs can all get a bit confusing. We do quite a bit of scrambling. There's a lot of people now getting more and more into scrambling, so we're going through basic, intermediate and advanced scrambling courses. And then we'll do general climbing courses, learn to lead, climbing development and lead development courses. Wild camping is another big course that we offer, where we actually take people out and teach them to safely and responsibly wild camp in the United Kingdom. I know it's a bit of a hot topic, but my take on it is if we can have experts teach people how to do it well and properly, that's surely better than just leaving everyone to their own devices and us getting into the trouble that we've seen out in the outdoors over recent years with the popularity it has. Sometimes we do quite a lot of technical advice. So we work on quite a lot of filming projects. We work a lot with universities. We're working with Lancaster University at the minute to review and work with their students and professors and teaching staff for their trips out to Arolla for the glaciology department. So yeah, it's varied.
Do you take on individuals, like private individuals, or is it mostly training for professionals?
Everything that we do is for members of the public, but obviously we have like universities and retailers come to us too, and we'll take one-on-one, and that's what our private guiding is. So that one-on-one private guiding, we have 3 levels of it, level 1, 2 and 3. Level 1 being where we're taking you into UK mountains, hill and mountain work. Level 2 being a bit more technical, so we're looking at scrambling level stuff. And then level 3 is where we send you out with one of the British mountain guides, because you've got a view on or a want towards an international expedition, and we'll give you the training. So level 1 might be somebody that goes, I've been into the mountains a few times myself, but really I want to sharpen my skills. So we can spend 1 or more days out with that individual, or them and their partner, them and their child, them and their mates. We can be flexible and create a syllabus just for them and the outcomes. So that might be to be a bit hotter on navigation, night navigation, emergency procedures in the UK mountains, how you need to think to deal with an incident, things like that. Level 2 might be, we've done lots of walking and we really want to get into scrambling, so we can go and look at, some scrambling techniques and possibly the use of, short ropes, stuff like that. And then obviously level 3, typically we get a lot of people that want to go and climb Mont Blanc, the Matterhorn, all the big tick things, Kilimanjaro, so on and so forth, and we will see where they're at, assess their capabilities and put an action plan together with them to get their confidence and skill set up to the level for them to really safely enjoy the mountains.
How has technology changed what you do? Because when I was a kid, it was a compass and a map, and now you've got smartwatches that can pretty much do everything except feed you.
I am a reluctant adopter to modern technology personally, and I'm a firm believer that knowledge of the ground and the mountains first, map and compass always. It's always in my bag and it's advised for everybody else. And then on top of that, we have some amazing things that our phones and watches can now do, but I always see them as an add-on. I've got a fantastic all singing, all dancing one of these watches. I use it to tell the time, and it's nice to know how many steps I've done that day. But for the rest of it, I use a map and compass because that's how I was brought up. How has it changed things? I think that the complacency is obvious with the amount of rescue call outs that we're having. It's such a shame that people don't understand some basic principles that could avoid that entirely and give them, a much more enjoyable day out, never mind safe. But we can't be Luddites and we need to roll with it. And we work with quite a few mountaineering clubs as well. So we work with the British Association of Swiss Alpine Club, and we do their training every year. And one of the things that some of the older members, I'm sure they're not going to appreciate me saying this, have asked me to do a GPS course. So some of my more tech-savvy instructors were sent out to show them through what the modern technology can do. Because I think in the Alps, as an example, more so than the UK mindset, The Europeans, for sure, are far more tech linked than most of us in the UK. I think, the old guard here in the UK still map and compass, but the vast amount of European guides, none of that. It's all phone and watch, and it works for them. But there's something about it that doesn't feel like that would wash very well in the UK, because we have a different environment, we have a different terrain, we have a different situation. We're not walking along wonderfully dramatic arêtes and stuff like that and marked paths that have got paint blobs on them. We are often out in sometimes super featureless terrain in sometimes pretty horrendous weather. And it's always good to sort of know where you are, map and compass, and by all means use GPS as a backup. But if you're relying on that primarily when you're going out with no map and compass and no knowledge of a map and compass, I think this is something that we need to try and address, which we've been trying to do for years and years. But then I go back to the thing is that we need to roll with the technology. There's no point telling a teenager now that you can just use a map and compass when they full well know that there's technology on their devices that they are way more familiar with than I'll ever be, that's not the way to go. So there's a balance to be struck. In the modern world we live in, with the social media influence on people, because I'm not going to say influencers, I want to be really clear on this, because there's some influencers out there that are fantastic and have got the right message going out, but there's some that are irresponsible, and what's really worrying is they don't even realize that they're irresponsible because they haven't got the knowledge. So they're saying these things on social media and people are absorbing it as though that they're the font of all knowledge, and they just don't have the experience and wherewithal to even know that what they're saying is quite dangerous.
And then you get the ones that are taking selfies or doing filming, and you're just looking at them thinking you're putting yourself in so much danger here. There's so many of those instances where you just look and think, that's just not, I mean, I'm not an expert, but you look at it and think, that's not right what you're doing.
But you know what it's like. How do you fix that? Do you try and tell people that they can't do it? A, you can't do that. It's not right to do so. But B, if you say you can't do it, it's just going to make more people do it. The best thing here is to have those solid influencers get more traction so that people can watch and experience people that know what they're saying and pick up the tips and tricks. And I'm not saying this to garner more business, this next point, but the best bit of kit you can ever have is knowledge. So the first investment for anyone going into the outdoors should be finding a way of getting that knowledge. Now, whether that's from a competent friend or someone you know, one of the local mountaineering or walking clubs, whatever it may be, or even, spending a bit of cash with your mates to come out with one of our guys just to give you, all the info we can. We love doing it. We were excited to do it. And that's going to go a lot further towards your safety and your enjoyment, the respect for the mountains, everybody else's enjoyment, than buying another jacket.
You can't predict 100% of what's going to happen because there's always going to be something that you've never seen before. But I think being armed with a lot of information gives you confidence that you can deal with certain situations, whereas you see so many people that are unprepared that if something were to happen, that they're not going to be able to respond properly.
Yeah, 100%. The Be Adventure Smart guys, that team with their information, I think that could be pushed more by our industry at all the points of entry for all these people coming and enjoying the outdoors. It's great that we've got more people going out and enjoying the outdoors, but that goes hand in hand with the damage to the environment, the damage to the paths, the irresponsible people leaving rubbish, the huge increase in mountain rescue call outs. And I've never, ever met a rescue team that's sort of unhappy about being called out. That's what they're there for. That's what they train for. But at the end of the day, these volunteers are going out in the middle of the night. And you know what? All kudos to them because they've always been very positive. I'm an instructor. I've been an instructor all my life to try and make a bit of a difference with that. You guys in the media as well, you can make, your difference. And as long as we're all trying our best to say, come and enjoy the outdoors. That's great. Get some knowledge. Taking all of your knowledge from what you bump into on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok isn't probably the best foundation for a long-lived and safe enjoyment of the outdoors.
Now that you're under that kind of Mammut umbrella, will there be changes and will it affect what you do?
No. Again, I've been running alongside Mammut now for 10 years plus. I've been working with that team really, really closely. The way we do business aligns with Mammut, so there's no changes there. When I met the Mammut main CEO, we had a good old chat about the mountain school, what he would like to see, what I would like to see, and we 100% agreed across the board with everything that we're trying to do. Getting more people into the mountains safely and responsibly is the sort of key foundational message. Because it's Mammut and because we are where we are, our expectations of a high standard of professionalism from our team are jointly also incredibly high, which is why Mammut have worked with, this sounds egotistical and it's not very British to say this, but that's the reason that Mammut have worked with me for so long, is because they know that they can turn to me and they know that me and my team, really core team, do things at an incredibly high standard. The attention to detail and the care that we put into our courses is huge. Everyone in the outdoors knows who Mammut are and the sorts of kit that they sell and they make and develop and evolve. Working together is a perfect partnership, actually.
Just to kind of close, maybe, I wonder for the average walker or hiker that has done maybe some of the Lake District peaks and Yorkshire or southern Scotland, and they want to do something a bit more challenging, what would you say are the most important things to be aware of when it comes to doing something that's a little bit outside of their comfort zone, maybe?
Well, firstly, I'm a big proponent about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I think that's the only way in all aspects of life that we grow and develop. The key here is working out what's stretching you and what's sort of taking you beyond your capabilities. The only real way you're ever going to know that is testing it, but that should be being with somebody that knows what they're doing, or you get some training and you get an expert to give you a hugely impartial point of exactly where you are. So if you're wanting to go and take on your next challenge, absolutely go for it. So you should. Your responsibility, however, is to honestly assess your competence and capability. And if you can't do that clearly, then get some of your mates together, come and find someone like us or your local club and just ask the question. We'll tell you and we'll help you.
Yeah, it's good advice, because I think a lot of people kind of sometimes bite off more than they can chew, and going back doesn't seem a very British thing to do. It's, well, I've got this far, I'm going to keep going, or that, well, the weather's getting worse, but we'll just make it up to the top because it's only another half hour, or, it just seems like we have this attitude of we've started, so we'll finish.
I wrote a book once called Why Have Adventures, and one of the chapters in that was about risk assessment. And the first time I attempted the Matterhorn with my mate Jacko, when I was quite a bit younger, I got up to a point. We hadn't really acclimatized well enough. We were pushing ourselves. It was incredibly busy on the mountain, and I decided that it was time to turn back, and we were literally 200 meters from the summit. We turned back, we got back down, the storm that was forecast hit, everything was buzzing, you know what it's like, and we got back down to the hut. Sadly, at the same time, another team that were near us, they decided to continue. Some of those guys didn't come back. Having the strength of conviction to be able to make the decision to turn back is based in experience and knowledge. The mountains will always be there, and your ability to make that decision to keep yourself and others safe is way more important than taking unnecessary risks. That decision was steeped in a lifetime of operating in the Alps with my father, and my father drilling this into me, and I remember being in my early 20s when I was on the Matterhorn with my mate Jacko and his voice in the back of my head. Unfortunately, not everybody had the upbringing I have. So it's for them to try and find that information elsewhere. And whether, again, that's through a local walking or mountaineering club or coming out on a course with not just us, but any other company, we can try our best to sort of give you that knowledge. But the knowledge of when to turn back comes quite a lot more, I would say, from experience than theoretical knowledge.
Another really enjoyable chat, and I definitely encourage anyone interested in learning more about safety, navigation, climbing, or simply feeling more confident about heading to the hills and mountains to definitely make the effort to learn more. Whether that's going to a school or from a hiking or mountaineering club, definitely pays to get more information. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been on hikes around the world and come across people completely unprepared for the conditions or for the terrain. So some great advice from Sam in that interview. So that's it for this week's podcast. Next week our subjects should be insurance for walking holidays and the amazing coast-to-coast walk passport. It's a long weekend here in the UK with a holiday on Monday and there's no school on Tuesday. And of course, it's forecast for rain. Should be filming on Saturday, but it's indoors, so I assume that we won't get wet. I was filming in the small town of Douglas this week. What a beautiful place that is. And I learned a lot too. We'll be back next week for the last podcast in May. So I hope you enjoyed this week's WalkingPost.com podcast. And I hope that you have a great week, hopefully with a walk somewhere, even if it's just around the supermarket. So, until next time, happy trails! Walking Post from WalkingPost.com is an Air Coastal Media Limited production.